Always feel really stupid just doing these kind of shots.
Everyone says living abroad is hard, and it is. The bureaucracy, the language gaps, the cultural misfires, ordering 4 cheese pizzas when you're meant to order 1 4 cheese pizza, you're far from family, and making friends as an adult is awkward. I moved out at 18, not abroad, but as far from home as I could get. Newcastle upon Tyne was my first outpost, then came Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, back to Germany, and in between I lived out of a suitcase in Prague, Dakar, Maputo, New York, Sydney, Montreux, Washington, La Paz, everywhere and nowhere. And after all that, here's what I've learned. There's something about living abroad that no one really tells you. You won't read it in travel blogs or visa forums. You only find out by doing it, by living through it, by feeling foreign.
So today I am in Maastricht. I used to call this place home. I've come back to visit a friend who is defending his thesis, which is exciting. It's always strange being back somewhere, isn't it? It's like, well, even though I know these streets really well and I lived here for 5 years, I basically feel foreign. And this isn't a new feeling for me. I've lived outside of the UK for almost 20 years. I have felt foreign, I guess, for most of my life at this point. But there's something really interesting about feeling foreign because, yeah, sure, you have this weird feeling of sadness and dislocation, but there's also a really, really surprising set of benefits that I don't think people talk about enough. So look, I spent most of my life feeling foreign, feeling like an outsider. It's part of my, I guess it's part of my character. It's just who I am. I've always been like this. I've always felt like an outsider, and I've always chosen the path, I guess, of most friction, and that's involved moving abroad quite a lot of the time. And all the stuff that I talked about earlier, that stuff starts to, when it starts to take its toll, it starts to grind you down after a while. So I keep asking myself the question, why do I do it? And it turns out that, well, after 20 years, it basically has a bunch of really surprising benefits. Feeling foreign isn't just vibes, if I'm not too old to use that word. Sure, there's friction and there's difficulties, but there's some scientific things behind the sense of feeling foreign that enable you to go on and do things that you couldn't otherwise do. And I believe if you harness it in the right way, I think it's a kind of gift.
Psychologists say living abroad can trigger 3 deep shifts in how we think and feel. The first is self-concept clarity. Basically, how clearly and confidently you understand who you are. When you move abroad, that all gets shaken. Language, routines, cultural cues, they all fall away, and suddenly you're asking, who am I without all of that? You kind of lose your autopilot, but that loss forces you to get intentional. I had to decide consciously how to live, relate, and respond to the world around me, and over time that made me more resilient. I think I made better decisions. I think I've built more authentic relationships, and I've definitely stopped chasing approval, says the guy with a YouTube channel who responds to every comment. But crucially, that clarity doesn't vanish. It's helped me in career shifts, it's helped me in parenting, in creativity. I think basically any time the ground moves, I have self-concept clarity to help me understand who I am. The second shift is called cultural frame switching, which is basically changing how you think and behave depending on the cultural context. And you see it a lot in bilingual people, for instance, and I felt it a bit. I'm more direct in German, say. I'm more reserved in Dutch, and I'm annoyingly polite in English. Different parts of me show up depending on where I am. It's demanding, but it's kind of powerful in a way. It's a bit of a superpower. You get better at reading the room and seeing things from different angles. And at times, yeah, I mean, it makes you feel in between. You're sort of fluent everywhere, but at home, nowhere. But it also makes you adaptive and flexible. And if you use it consciously, it is a strength. The third concept is somewhat harder to pin down. It's called emotional and existential displacement. And it's the feeling that you no longer fully belong anywhere, not to a place or even to your past self. I felt homesick, for instance, for versions of me that I've outgrown. I'm kind of caught between identities, not sure where I fit. But over time I've realised that in between space is where something new can form. A third identity, if you will, like built but not inherited. It's uncomfortable, but it's honest. You're no longer living someone else's story, you're writing your own. Living abroad doesn't just move you, it rewires you. Feeling foreign upgrades your decision making, your way of seeing the world, and your sense of self. The friction isn't a flaw, it's the forge. So if you're thinking of moving abroad, sure, expect the logistics to be annoying, but also expect to grow in ways that are hard to explain and impossible to reverse. If you're already abroad and you're feeling off kilter or disoriented or out of place, good, that's not failure, that's transformation. And if living abroad isn't an option for you, well, put yourself in a situation where you don't quite fit, on purpose. Visit a neighbourhood you've never been to, speak a language you're still learning, take a trip that makes you feel out of place, and then pay attention to how you adapt. You don't need to cross a border to feel foreign. You just need to do one thing today that unsettles you just a little.